We're ready to roll. Let's go. So I'm just going to jump right in. I'm so curious about when someone starts something like Namba. The first question I was going to ask was, how did you pick the colors? But maybe before we do that, um, give the 60-second version of Namba for me.
Yeah, first and foremost, NAMBA is really an organization for anyone, and I say that very sincerely, anyone that's really passionate about learning, growing, and developing. Even though our mission statement is a two-part mission statement, with the first part being to provide training, education, and professional development to women and minorities. Really, at the end of the day, it's anyone. That's what NAMBA is all about. And then the second part of our mission is to introduce and connect college and high school students to exciting careers in our industry, as well as provide financial literacy education so that ultimately we can have more young people graduating from college with the goal of, I want to own a home sooner than later. And
Right.
that's what we do at NAMBA.
So I'm intrigued by the last part that you just said, that the connection to those coming out of education, college or otherwise, I would assume, and putting them in a position. I have a friend of mine that we talk about financial resiliency, right? Which is something that I think a lot of people lack in this country because they weren't taught those things. How I think I understand. I want to talk about it. How you connect with the mortgage banking industry, but when you connect with those individuals to give them training to be more educated or resilient around financial services in general, are you actually doing that? You're educating those folks at that level as well before they even enter the industry?
Yeah, our goal is, we realize when you look at and think about our industry, whether it's title, whether it's loan origination, whether it's real estate, whether it's appraisal, just about every segment of the industry is aging. And so when you think about how we're going to look over the next 10 to 20 years, we need more young people. And the demographics also say we need more diverse young people, because our entire marketplace is becoming much more diverse. So we believe at NAMBA, the best way to help our industry prepare for the future is connect with the future, which are young, talented, diverse individuals, and non-diverse. It doesn't matter. I mean, we've heard the story of how most people got into the industry. So for us, what we want to do is put chapters on college campuses. We've got over 30 NAMBA chapters, and our vision is wherever we have a NAMBA chapter, we will also have a college or two or more college chapters within that city. So pick a city, we'll just say Orlando, Florida. Within Orlando, Florida, yes, we're going to have a NAMBA chapter, Eric, but we want to be on the University of Central Florida, which is their largest Division I, II school here in Orlando. But we also want to be with Valencia Community College, because we know that some great talent may not go all the way to college. They may be in community colleges. And then we want to be in a Division II school within the Central Florida market, to make sure that no matter where these students are, we can do one, educate them about who we are and what we do and the opportunities we have in our industry. And then two, start the process of making sure when they are freshmen, they understand the importance of financial literacy, FICO, managing their credit, so that when they graduate with a great job, hopefully within the mortgage and real estate industry, if not, they will still be in a better position to buy a home at the age of 24 and 25, not 34 and 35 a decade later.
Well, and you think about the other benefits also, just making them more financially literate, right? Yes. In the education that we're not doing, in certainly in the public school system, high school and otherwise. Have you pulled that off yet? Do you have any chapters on college campuses yet?
Absolutely. So this year, we're really excited. It's been like everyone in our industry, we've had to pivot, adapt, and false starts and things of that nature as it relates to connecting. But currently, we're doing a one-year pilot in the city of Houston. And so we have 6 colleges and universities. The University of Houston, we have 2 chapters on their campus. We have Rice University. We have the University St. Thomas, which is a Latino-based, highly propensity Latino-based college. And then we have what we call 2 HBCUs, Texas Southern and Prairie View A&M. And then last but not least, we're working with one of the largest community college systems, Houston Community College in Houston as well, where we literally have chapters that we're doing education. We're bringing in partners to talk about who we are and what we do from a lending and a real estate perspective. And then once we develop this beta pilot for the fall and into the spring of next year, we're then going to create a playbook and a toolkit, Eric, to essentially roll that out into communities across the country.
That's amazing. I guess I didn't know that lever of what you were doing. Was that a difficult thing to pull off with the universities and colleges or municipalities themselves? I mean, did they push back at all and say, we don't want somebody coming in from the outside doing this. We want to own it and do it ourselves. I'm curious what that process was like.
Well, first of all, I'm going to go back to an earlier statement that you made that I really did not know was really not being done in our schools across America. And that's just financial literacy, basic financial literacy. When we talk to students across the country right now and they go through our college training program, it wows me at the lack of financial literacy most college students have. And so one, we know that we've got to really help increase and improve that in order to close the financial literacy gap. So, first, we know that there's a major need for this on college campuses. And it is our goal that over the next decade, we're going into high schools where we will have high school clubs. So not just college for today, but we want to get to students when they're in high school, because that's really where they should start learning about financial literacy, in my opinion. Having said that, the launch of putting and really launching 100+ chapters across the country is a Hercules effort that NAMBLA needs the help of every lender, every organization that is in the real estate or fintech or financial services industry, because it is going to take a village to do what we want to do in terms of closing the home ownership gap. What we found is that most colleges acknowledge that this service is needed, and they haven't provided and don't even provide it in their curriculum that they offer throughout their fall and spring semesters. And so one, you have 3 different key stakeholders that we're trying to help bring to the table. The first are the institutions, because we have to help them understand how we can help benefit them and connect them to more partners like great companies within the real estate finance industry. But then you have the primary stakeholder, which are students themselves. What's in it for me? I've got all these great, cool companies, Uber, FinTech, Google, Microsoft, all these cool companies coming to college campuses. What's this mortgage banking, loan officer, operations? Like, that doesn't sound cool. So, we have to really make sure that our goal is to help them understand who we are, what we do, and how they can be a major impact in growing home ownership in their local communities. And that's the connection point to the young people. They want to make a difference in the communities that they live in. And then third is the business community itself, meaning the partners, the lenders, the real estate firms, the title firms. We've got to make sure at the end of the day, we have an opportunity to create a roadmap and make this something that certainly, if they support, they're going to have a benefit in terms of return on investment. And obviously, the key thing is you're going to bring young, diverse talent into your organization.
Well, in reality, I know, you seriously and maybe somewhat jokingly, sort of basically said the mortgage banking industry isn't cool to the college students. But you're also creating value for all these other industries, quite frankly, also, right? Because I mean, a fiscally responsible and educated individual, I would think, and more times than not, is also going to be a more valuable and adaptable employee.
Absolutely. And, again, what we found is once students go through the financial literacy piece, once they understand the really the importance of home ownership and how they can use home ownership as the cornerstone to grow generational wealth for them and their families, particularly if they've never done this. We're talking a lot, Eric, about first-time generation or second-time generation families where, the secrets of how to build and cultivate and grow wealth hasn't been passed down because there hasn't been any wealth to pass down. And
Right.
so literally, we're talking about helping students start to change the trajectory of their family's lineage and their heritage by being the first in their family to think about creating long-term wealth in their in their family.
You getting to know you a little bit and looking at your background, you got into the industry a while back. You went through the crash as well. I think you did some consulting work during that period of time. When you look back to when you first started, and first of all, I'm curious how you got into the industry. What you, because now you're educating students. There was a point where you were a student and you were thinking about, how's Tony gonna feed himself, right? What am I going to do for a living? I'm curious how you got in, but I'm also curious where your head is now thinking back to what you're doing today. Did you ever imagine that you would be doing this with NAMBA, however many years ago?
That answer is very much no.
Yeah, I bet.
If you were to ask me while I was in college or after college, or even, 6 years ago, NAMBA was only created 5 years ago. If you were to ask me 6 years ago, would I be leading in a nonprofit and a movement in our industry around diversity? I would say, heck no. I've supported, but I wouldn't be the guy, right?
Right.
And what happened is real simple. My career is no different than a lot of others. I started out in this industry in HR, Eric, and actually supporting a mortgage firm and a mortgage company within the human resources. And my CEO at the time said, hey, man, you're going to be great. You would be great in sales. And like anything, we all know, like when we see a great salesperson, right? So with their help, they transitioned me into.
But did they take you out to the parking lot first to see what they were driving? That great salesperson?
Exactly. That always
Right.
helps, right? It always helps when you can say, what's that and what do you do? And
That's
like
right. Exactly.
says, how can I get one, right?
That's right.
That's
It's all motivation. That's right.
Right. But when I realized the ability to help individuals while have freedom as an entrepreneur, and also the ability to grow my income, to grow my career, man, it became a no-brainer for my passion to really focus and learn the loan origination business. And so I started out, moved up as a originator, branch manager, area manager, regional manager for both banks and non-banks. And really my last employer, Silverton Mortgage, I always give a shout out to Team Silverton, because really that's where I learned about giving back more. So that was really a reason and part of the reason why NAMBA is where it is today. Because, when you are working for a company, the culture that's created, the leadership that supports people to grow and develop, that was something that was important to Silverton. And Josh Moffitt, who's the CEO of Silverton Mortgage, our focus at that time was always helping people to be the best that they can be. And I was fortunate enough that we had a foundation, we still have a foundation at Silverton that they call the Silverton Foundation, that focused on helping to provide rental and mortgage payments for students, or excuse me, for families who are working with their kids at the local children's hospital. So imagine a mom and dad who's a waitress or a waiter or a first line responder having to leave their job for 3 or 4 months to take care of their child, how they're going to make the mortgage or rent payment. And at Silverton, that servant leadership that we did was really my way of saying, hey, you know what, Josh, I want to serve my industry and I want to help my industry be better. And he gave me the opportunity to work a full-time job while also trying to be an ambassador for our industry to bring more young people in, to really lead the charge around diversity, equity, and inclusion before it became cool,
Right.
2 years ago. We were talking about it 5 years ago, and it was on that basic foundation that NAMBA was built as a way to make a difference for the people who are in the industry and the people coming into the industry.
Now, I love that. Was there a moment in your career where something punched you in the stomach or a light bulb went off to say, I want to develop this niche. I want to support women and minorities in a way that maybe you felt like they weren't being supported? Or did someone come to you with the idea? Where was the spark?
So back in 2011, Eric, I got my certified mortgage banker's designation within the MBA. And so if anyone knows about the CMB is basically the creme de la creme, less than about 1,600 individuals across the industry out of 500,000 plus mortgage professionals are CMBs, right? So I said, hey, I made a decision after the Great Recession that I was going to be the best mortgage banker I could be, and I was going to try to make this industry better than when I came into it as an individual, right? And so the best way to do that is to grow and develop yourself. So once I got my CMB designation, I started speaking at the MBA, and I got a chance to just, continue to speak at different events. And, the thing that was really, I tell the story all the time, what was really sad for me was at that point in time, I would go into a room, and other than the wait staff, literally, I was the only person of color in the room, or I was the only young person back in the day in the room. And so I said to myself, this is not our industry. We need more young women, young people in the room. We need more women in the room. We need more diversity in the room. And, it was through that experience that I started talking to other folks. They're like, yeah, you know what? We do need an organization, a network, an ecosystem, as I call it, where like-minded individuals who are passionate about just growing and developing can connect. And that was the genesis of how NAMBA was born.
It's easy for you and I to talk about, well, I say it's easy, and I don't say that flippantly. So let me preface it. It's easy for you and I to talk about why this mission is such a great mission and why it's obvious in our industry. Because Tony, trust me, man, for years, I go to events and I look around the room and everybody looks the same. I mean, for the most part, right? But I tend to do that in situations around my hometown as well. What does my environment look like? It's like a restaurant that you go to, as an example. Look around the room. Is there diversity in this room? Anyway, it's easy to talk about how great it is. I'm a little curious about the other side, though. And I ask because of some boards that I've served on that have supported minority youth in communities where it's also difficult to break into those communities. And now look, you and I don't look the same. It's a little different for you to break into that community than it is for me. It might take me a little more time. I have to build some trust, but I have still found that if the mortgage industry wasn't something that was ever presented to a community, whatever the community is, Black community, you name it, that they might not trust that industry even cares anything about them. Did you find in the beginning, or even now, that it's still a little bit difficult to crack that community code?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, let's think about the past and then the present. Literally, the people who are buying homes today are the same kids, for lack of a better term, who saw their parents foreclosed upon in the Great Recession.
That's right. Go broke. Yep.
So in their mind, first and foremost, when you say you're a mortgage professional, you're a mortgage broker, you're a mortgage banker, whatever the case may be, depending on their experience, and there's a high probability if they are a person of color and their family owned a home 10 years ago, that they were negatively impacted from our industry and all the carelessness that we did in that point in time. We have to own up to that. So we have already, a gap of trust that we have to build within today's buyers, because they're remembering the people who, came and closed and foreclosed on their mom and dad, in some cases caused their marriages to go bad. I mean, there are a lot of things that happened in the Great Recession. And so from that, it is important for us as an industry first to acknowledge and then say we are here to make all the communities that we live in and do business in better. And then the second piece is what I found out, Eric, no matter where I go, no matter what town, what city, if you treat people the way that you want to be treated, with respect, with authenticity, with genuineness, and really a sincere desire to help them, most people, as I say every day, wake up wanting to own a home. There are not too many people who wake up in America saying, you know what, forget about home ownership. I don't never want to own a home. I don't care about building wealth. I don't want to leave my family anything. That's not what most people wake up every morning saying.
Right.
The question is, how do I get to where I want to go? And
Right.
It's our job as an industry to now use this moment of 2 and 3 great years of, where everyone else and a lot of other sectors are having some hard times. We've had the best of times, right?
Right.
So what do we do with that responsibility? What do we do with this moment we have to also demonstrate we've changed? We are better than what we were a decade ago. This is our moment to show the communities that we all live in.
How do you feel like as an industry that we're still falling pretty short of that goal? I mean, you clearly in your platform, your organization is completely focused on it. But as an industry as a whole, do you think we're talking the talk? Or do you think we're actually doing the things necessary to flip that, that perception? Or do you think time has just sort of gotten people's brains forgetting about what happened in 2008, 2009?
I would say as an industry, we still have a long way to go. Everyone now knows how to say the word diversity. Everyone now knows how to say the word DE&I. Everyone knows how to say, social impact, so, creating generational wealth. But really, we have to really ask ourselves every day, what are we doing in our organizations to bring and create and foster more inclusiveness? What are we doing in the communities that we live in and serve in? And then most importantly, helping companies and helping originators to understand that this is also an opportunity. If I were to say, hey, there's a new frontier where you can actually go and live in a different hemisphere, and we're going to create vehicles to transport you outside of the orbit of Earth, and you will be able to live above orbit and see Earth, can you understand the potential there? And if so, we're already heading that way. And so my point to companies are, this marketplace is going to grow and is going to evolve and is going to continue to be a big impact to anyone who's in financial services or residential lending for the foreseeable future. So if you understand this segment is not going anywhere, what are you doing to prepare to maximize the opportunity to do good by doing good, meaning make money while also making an impact and making the communities and the people who live in those communities and the employees in those communities better as well.
What's the part that you like the most about what you're doing right now? I mean, I'd like something specific. Are you going to these colleges? I mean, I'm assuming you are at some level and getting in front of these students. I know that you do a lot of events and speaking. I'm going to ask you later, like where you find the time to do things outside of NAMBA and mortgage banking, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Is there a part of it that you enjoy the most, the thing that gives you the most juice?
Yeah, for me, Eric, while the first part of our mission, again, is focusing on helping the professionals who are in this industry grow their business and grow their career. The thing that really gets me up and going every day is recognizing that the more that we can help our youth and engage our youth and help them understand the importance of financial literacy, we're going to do two things. We're going to help build better communities, one individual at a time, because, hey, it's proven through home ownership, man, people who grow up in a home, they feel better about their community. They feel safer. And most importantly, they also, at the end of the day, they want to make things better. And so I look at one of the ways that our industry can make all the communities that we live in and work in and do business in better is to put more people in homes, because home ownership creates pride. Home ownership creates dreams and aspirations to be able to leave something further behind. The second piece, really quick, is also around making sure that there's a Tony Thompson, there's an Eric Levin out there that we know nothing about and they know nothing about us. And so my goal is to make sure that we connect with as many young students as possible. Black, white, green, yellow, doesn't matter to me, man, because what we need are people like you, me, and others to come into our industry and make it better.
Okay, with what you just said, do you then have a little bit of, do you get a little bit stressed out, or do you push back a little bit when you see maybe groups, other trade groups, I don't mean our industry necessarily, that are so focused on diversity, inclusion, but when you look at their group, they're really hyper focused on a single group, meaning, maybe I should just stop right there, because there's another place where my brain is going. I think you know what I mean, though, where it almost becomes tribal. It's so incredibly focused on one group. Does that give you a little bit of pain when you see that? Because, you know, when you do that, it makes it that much more difficult to create a multiple of all the individuals and opportunities that ultimately you can touch.
You know, there are a lot of great associations out there that, you know, whether it's in real estate, some in the mortgage space, that help support various ethnicities and goals and objectives, right? And for NAMBA, when we first created NAMBA, the vision of NAMBA for me was real simple. We want NAMBA to be, whether you're black, white, green, yellow, male, female, in between, it doesn't matter. We want NAMBA to be that if you came to a NAMBA event, that you felt included, and also at the same time that you could be a part of whatever we're doing to make a difference in our community, to grow your business, et cetera. And that for us is where we want to focus on, is saying we believe that there's opportunity by everyone working together to be better. You know, 25% of our members are white. Most people don't know that, but that's because at the end of the day, we give phenomenal training, we give phenomenal education. And the things that I really get excited about is when a non-minority comes to one of our NAMBA events or comes to our National Connect conference and they walk away and say, this is nothing like I've never seen before. It was an experience that was awesome. And I didn't, you know, I was scared because it was it was NAMBA, right? It was, I thought it was just for minorities. And then when they got there, they felt like, wow, I talked to everyone. I was engaged. I didn't feel like I was on the outside. I felt like I was on the inside. And that goes back to how I felt when I first came into this industry, where, again, when I walked into many rooms to network, the people who caught my eye were the wait staff, usually because they're Black or minorities. And those are the people who I started talking to first, because I felt comfortable. And so I oftentimes remind myself, I want to make sure that when someone walks into a NAMBA room, that they immediately feel comfortable and that they're engaged with everyone in that room.
I love that. What I also envision is that it's, whether it's business or growing wealth, or lots of other things, the words leverage and scale mean something. And you're doing both at NAMBA. When you have that non-minority that walks into the room and they get something out of it, what do you think they then do? They talk about it. They go outside of that room and they talk about it and they tell others what a great experience it was for them. And so although that person might be a non-minority, they're leveraging, they're helping scale the mission, which I think is what I'm hearing from you also.
You don't have to be a minority to help impact minority lives. You don't have to be a minority to help impact your own community. And a lot of times, Eric, when I'm talking to LOs, I help them see that, look, this multicultural opportunity is an opportunity for you to redefine your business and how you originate as an LO. And just because you're not Latino or African American or Asian or other niches, that doesn't mean you can't build a team and you can't build a support cast that can help you plug in and connect to this market and serve this marketplace.
Agreed.
You know, we have to think out of the box then versus how we've always done business as an industry.
Well, then the trickle down also then becomes the value that all of this creates to those local communities that you're talking about, right? I mean, I think I had a conversation with someone once where we was talking about, you know, you could look at a map, and if you look at the FICO score of various counties and municipalities, you can pretty much guess, you know, you can model out what's going to happen within that community. I think what you're doing also helps positively impact with that trickle down effect, uplifting those communities that maybe are struggling from a FICO score perspective. And I use FICO as an example, right? There's lots of examples we could utilize. I'm curious what you were like growing up, Tony. Like, were you always somebody that sort of looked to stick your finger in places to see if you can make it better? Like, it's just that, because I know your education, you've got a master's in organizational change and leadership. And is this just kind of always who you were?
Yeah, you know, I've always been the person to say, how can I make it better? I've always been also the person who's had that entrepreneurial spirit in them. I ran a candy store, Eric, at the age of 12, where I used to have go and buy candy at the neighborhood store and then come back and resell it and mark it up in my garage.
I love that.
And, even had one of those little clay cash registers and had a payroll. My sister would work for me as one of my employees. But, it was all about just, really helping people, and I've had that spirit in me in terms of just wanting to make the people around me better. And most importantly, wanting to make a difference. And I have a philosophy. I say all the time, do it right or not at all. And so if I'm going to do something and I dedicate my time, energy, and effort, I want to make it the best it can be, or just don't do it at all.
Let's stick with that. So I'm curious of any big failures you've experienced along the way that you look back now and you realize maybe it really wasn't a failure. It was something that needed to happen to put you in a position where you could be, successful doing what you're doing today.
I would say that there's not a failure that I look back that was a defining moment. What I will say is a defining moment is just stepping out and believing in yourself. And what I mean by that is, again, when I started NAMBA, it really wasn't no intention of like being where I am today. It was really about, hey, you know what, I need to, help people. I'm in the industry, so let me connect and network and, share what I know to help other people, right? Hopefully most people who've been in an industry, or most people who want to give back, right? But it wasn't to the level that we're doing now. And it was then ultimately a point where I realized that, you can be one of those individuals that say that we need to do this, and 100 other things and never do it. Or you can, look at what you say that we need to do and ask yourself, if I'm passionate enough to do this, do I believe I can make a change? And if I can, then go make that change. And that's kind of what I've learned, is sometimes we can't be afraid to step out if it's something we're really passionate about, and to use that passion to drive change. And, I oftentimes tell people, look, I'm no different than anybody else, except I was the one guy 5 years ago that said, we need to have a conference, I'm having a conference. Whether 5 people show up or 50 or 500, I'm having a conference. And it just started from there.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think that your mentality is just one, I asked this question around failure. Your mentality is, I guess, just one where you view failure differently, maybe, than other people. It's just sort of part of the process. I think that's an athlete's mentality, quite frankly. You look at most athletes and they're failing constantly, but they don't really view it that way. It's part of training. It's the only way I'm going to get ultimately better. I'm sure there were some things you look back at those first couple of conferences and you laugh and you think, well, I'll never do it that way again.
Yeah. Again, it's a joy when you can look back and see the journey that you've taken and realize at the same time where you're headed. And that's kind of where we are with NAMBA right now. Our first 5 years was just trying to figure it out. But now we are positioned to be the premier resource for the financial services industry and the mortgage industry around diversity and inclusion, all with the focus of helping companies to become better. And so that is really what excites me and what gets me passionate now is the ability to help companies and help the employees in those companies become better by leveraging diversity as a competitive advantage.
I'm going to kind of take a left-hand turn a little bit, because with what I do and what we've done in building out our technology platform that supports companies in their strategic growth efforts, more as a relationship building and recruiting tool, though. I think about you because you're with Silverton still, correct?
No, I left Silverton at the beginning of the pandemic, which was one of those things where it was kind of short, funny story. In December of, I guess that would be 2019, okay. I went in and said, hey, I think, working 100 hours, 200 hours a week, doing a full-time job in the industry and also NAMBA, you just can't do that forever. And I had to make a decision to say, look, where's my passion at and where do I feel like I could have the most impact? And so it was like either, let someone take NAMBA and run your baby, or you take it and make it the best that you can make it based on your dreams. And so right when we did that and left, the pandemic happened. And so if there was a moment where I realized if I made a mistake, it was a short period of time, Eric, where I'm like, did I make the right decision?
That's right.
Sitting in the middle of the pandemic. But, at the end of the day, it just, everything fell into place, right? And companies, for a number of different reasons started needing and valuing diversity more. And the rest has been history, man.
That's funny. So you kind of look and say, man, if I'd have just hung in for another 18 months or so, you also could have taken advantage of this rate environment that we've been in. And just going, well, I should have known that. But one of the, where my head was, and as I thought about talking to you today and knowing what you're doing with NAMBA, and then also knowing that you've been a mortgage banker for years. And so before the pandemic, when you were with Silverton, were you also originating?
So I was helping in terms of growth. So I had stopped originating a couple of years earlier in my job with Silverton.
Okay. So my question is still the same. So in 2018, 19, when you were doing both and working 200 hours a week, you're doing these conferences, you're educating, your name is growing dramatically in this industry. I've got to assume that there were people that were also curious about where you were. I mean, you're with Silverton and you're also with NAMBA. Did you find that there were slippery slope moments where you're supporting other mortgage bankers, but there's people that are now also talking to you about the mortgage banker that you're with?
Yeah. The great thing I would say during that experience was, and even to this day, first and foremost, I was able to separate my job and role within Silverton. And actually, I would say try to even work harder because I knew I had a leader, Josh Moffitt, as well as the organization, Silverton Mortgage, that supported what I was doing as just an individual, right? That supported my why. And so that made me work harder on the Silverton side, while also at the same time, being very passionate, knowing that I had a responsibility to the industry to help those companies and leaders that came. And so, what I found, Eric, was first and foremost, NAMBA to this day has a non-recruiting policy. So our belief and my belief is real simple. We want to create an environment where no matter who you are and who you work for, if you come to a NAMBA event, the whole goal is back to our mission: to train, educate, and provide professional development. And so in order to do that, people have to feel like, I'm not going to get hit up, I'm not going to be trying to get talked to. And so in the 5 years is also, I used to also sometimes make a joke that I was the head of NAMBA, but I very rarely recruited minorities to Silverton, because I wanted to make sure that no one could ever say that I was using or misabusing my role within NAMBA to intentionally, benefit Silverton.
Right.
People came to Silverton because of the leadership and where the organization was headed, but I was very conscious to make sure that I did not recruit people. Very few the people I recruited were for Silverton were minorities. There were actually non-minorities. So that's often kind of funny when you look back my minority diversity guy who's not even supporting diversity.
Your metrics would have been real off.
Yeah, I would have been like really off the metric there. But having said that, leaders also realize that this wasn't about me. It wasn't about one company. It was about our industry. And that's where we built the trust, the reputation, and the respect of leaders and people in the industry, that we're here for the common good of our industry.
Yeah, you drew a hard line, and I think that's honorable for sure. The other thing I'd say to that is that in the mortgage space, and maybe other industries as well, where a lot of those recruiting opportunities are salespeople, people that have transferable books of business, right? They've built a book of business that has value, and that book of business is based upon trusted relationships that they've built with other people. That the best, quote, recruiters in this industry are actually ones that they don't actually recruit. They build relationships and they nurture over time. And then ultimately those people come to Tony and say, hey, I like you, Tony, and I trust you, and I'd like to know about Silverton. So it's you probably had those opportunities that wouldn't have been you recruiting. They would have been just the fact that you've nurtured relationships and built trust. But I hear you. I respect the fact that you drew that hard line, and then you didn't get those metrics that people probably would have thought, the guy that's running NAMBA would have gotten. But I was curious about that, because I know that can be a slippery slope. That could be a tough one. So
absolutely, man. And that was something we were very mindful and cognizant of, every day, particularly in NAMBA's early years. But, we're proud to say that, no company was ever able to come and say, hey, Tony, because my employees came to NAMBA, they went over to Silverton, or they went to ABC Lender. And oftentimes, as I tell CEOs, and I'm talking to leaders all the time, I said, really, at the end of the day, it's amazing how our industry, we are so afraid to lose people. And what I tell people and leaders all the time is, you never lose a great employee who wants to be there.
That's right.
And the way that you make employees want to be there is you create a culture in an environment where they feel included and valued.
That's right. And by the way, there are times where you lose people and it was the right thing, actually, because although in this industry, a loan may be a loan, how you get from point A to point Z is very different, but with lots of companies. And also people work with people, and people ultimately leave people. And sometimes, people join other companies, not because they hate their current company or something went wrong. There's just something about a goal or a desire that they have that they can accomplish within another platform. What are you, if you were to think about something relative to our industry, and maybe let's, for the sake of this question, we'll set a rule. We'll say that the answer can't have anything to do with diversity and inclusion for this answer. What is there anything that concerns you the most as you look out on the horizon? I mean, there's a lot of, we're sort of coming out of this, market driven frenzy that's been going on in our industry. Play out the next 12 or 24 months for me. What would concern you the most?
The thing that concerns me the most is leaders in our industry forgetting and having amnesia about what happened 10 years ago. Hey, we want everyone to make money. There's money to be made, but if you sit and listen to every lender or most lenders, they want exponential growth. They want what I call fintech, double-digit growth every year. Well, we already know, first of all, we've got a couple of issues where that just isn't going to be a reality. You've got a housing supply issues. You've got an age issue of people aging out. You have a product mix issue as well in terms of serving those needs of people who would qualify or may qualify, and having the right products to serve those and put them in a home. So at some point, if my greatest fear is if the leaders in our industry start saying, I've got to stretch, and that leads us to do things that really are not for the benefit of the consumer and the industry and communities that we all live in. We could find ourselves repeating history, and that would not be a good thing. And I think this time, when you look at how young people are holding companies more accountable, let's just take, just whether you believe it or not, climate change, and as I see what's going on over in COP26, the people who are out there in COP26, and getting in front of these world leaders, talking to them about the urgency and importance of climate change, they are all young people. So what is my message here, Eric? If our industry wants to survive and thrive in the future, we've got to understand the very people that can impact the longevity of our success are young people, and that they are passionate about making sure that we are able to do good by doing good.
We should probably just drop the mic there, but I've got two more questions before we do really drop the mic. That was great. Thank you, Tony. Okay. These are off the wall kind of questions. They're not really off the wall. I mean, I know how busy you are. And so what do you do outside of NAMBA? What do you do that has nothing to do with mortgage banking and nothing to do, like, what do you enjoy doing? And don't say golf. I know you're going to say golf, aren't you? By the way, was the defining moment comment earlier, was that a Tin Cup reference?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. Associate that with
I had to try, right?
Yeah. To that point, when I'm not doing anything for NAMBA, which is a rarity, although I do like playing golf, which is a rarity as well, really for me, man, at the heart, I'm a percussionist. I love drums. I love music. And so,
really?
Yeah. So, there's nothing like being able to get on a drum set and, play a little bit and, rock the stage.
Man, I'm so glad I asked that question. Now I know something I probably would have never known about you. Okay, so I just added another question though. So if I was to
there's a famous drummer, for anyone who knows drums, there's a famous drummer named Tony Thompson. And so that's kind of my.
It was your birthright.
Yeah, exactly.
It was the birthright. It had to be. So if I had a hold of your phone right now and I could look at your Spotify list, who are some of the bands that are going to show up most often on Tony Thompson's Spotify list?
You know what, Eric, you'd be surprised, man. It is literally everything. And I've got, on my Fab Five favorite, I've got Florida Georgia Line, I've got Tupac, I've got, I would say some Michael Jackson,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm literally all over the place as it relates to music, man. I'm just again, being a percussionist and growing up with music as a music background and jazz. I love jazz. I love jazz as well.
That's awesome. I love it. All right. Last question. You ready? When you had that candy store, when you were 12 years old, what's the candy that sold the most? What was the most profitable piece of candy? The one you knew you had to get your hands on when you went and purchased what you thought was wholesale, even though it wasn't. What was that piece of candy you had to get your hands on?
My biggest driver from a profitability and a margin standpoint was a candy that, and it's still in business today, called Now and Later.
So, I remember those.
Now and Laters.
Those are. I thought those were terrible. Those sold them. That was your best item.
That killed it, man. So I would buy them for 10 cents back in the day when I was a young child and sell them for 25 cents.
So was that the one you could have the greatest markup and still push it?
That was the greatest markup there. You're talking 150% markup. for a 10-cent, candy. And, to this day, it's also one of my favorites. So I guess maybe that's why I bought a lot of them and tried to push them a lot.
Well, we spent 45 minutes talking about NAMBA and your background, and the two biggest takeaways is that you're a percussionist, and that Now and Later apparently got a real bad rap, because I would have never picked that it would have been Now and Later.
Dude,
Now or Later. I can't remember what it was called because I didn't care that much.
Now Later. I mean, it's Now and Later, but we call it Now Later. And so
Now Later.
Now Later, but that was my hottest seller back in the day, man.
That's not what I would have guessed. If I had a survey, I think that would have come in last on the multiple choice questions for sure. Hey, Tony, this was great. I appreciate you carving out some time. I know how busy you are. Obviously, we've talked recently about NAMBA, and personally, I would hope that there's situations that you could call on me to support that mission. Certainly open is something that's clearly vital and important. But thanks for carving out some time and spending some time with me on the walk today.
No, man, I love it. I love what you guys are doing there in Model Match as well. I think that's needed for our industry, and is a great resource for lenders to really help them understand and have the tools and resources to really, at the end of the day, attract and retain the best and brightest in their organization. And so, man, I'm a fan of you guys, and certainly appreciate you having me on as well.
Yeah, I appreciate you. We'll talk soon, my friend.
All right, man. Take care. We'll see you soon. Thanks, Eric.
Bye-bye. You got it.